More foreign observers arrive as Nigeria counts down to Saturday's elections.
We wish the Nigerian people, under your leadership, Mr. Chairman, very successful elections.
Acting Chief Justice of Nigeria swears in more elections petition tribunal judges.
And Kano State Police Command intercepts vehicle loaded with 14 bags of specimen ballot papers.
And on Good Morning Nigeria today, our focus is on Nigeria on election eve, a situation report.
Indeed, it's election eve, and across the nation, INEC and other interest groups, especially the civil society and indeed all Nigerians, are putting finishing touches to preparations for that historic event.
Indeed, Claire, Saturday's election will be historic in many ways. And as we have indicated on Good Morning Nigeria, of course, the countdown is that Nigeria is heading to 20 years of uninterrupted democracy. And Nigerians, of course, who are eligible will be trooping to the polls tomorrow, Saturday, to elect a president and 109 members of the Senate, plus 360 members of the House of Representatives, both chambers making up the National Assembly. And those to be elected will pilot the affairs of the country for the presidency from May 29th and, of course, thereafter for the members of the legislature.
Indeed, and of course, for the records, it will be the 6th time since 1999 that Nigerians will be going to the polls. Another important thing to note about this election is that for those born in 1999, it probably will be the first time, it will indeed be their first time of exercising their franchise. And as predicted by election analysts, the expectations are that Saturday's election will witness unprecedented turnout of the electorate.
There's certainly no doubt about that, Claire. In terms of the numbers of elections that we have had, the transition election took place, that's the presidential election, took place in February of 1999. And, of course, since the advent of the Fourth Republic, this will be the 5th in the series. And as you have also indicated, there's a great deal of enthusiasm, particularly among the youth, that's to say the millennials, who are now qualified to vote for the first time since they came of age. That's to say, they attained the age of 18. And they have also been very enthusiastic in the electionary activities, which began in November last year officially, but closed on Thursday, that's yesterday, at midnight. That was the deadline for the end of electionary campaigns.
Indeed, Kingsley, talking about the enthusiasm, shown by Nigerians, INEC says that more than 84 million eligible voters registered and, of course, are expected to participate actively in this election. And out of this figure, again, the youth have the highest percentage.
Well, they do. That's talking about the numbers of those who registered. Unfortunately, not an equal number collected their PVCs. So probably, therefore, will be in a position to exercise their franchise tomorrow and the 2nd of March. But Good Morning Nigeria has been counting down to E-Day, and we have discussed a wide range of events that have been unfolding, particularly, much more recently, the fire incidents at Oka in Anambra State. We also had a fire incident in Abia and Plateau States. Today, Good Morning Nigeria will assemble another set of guests, and this will include INEC officials to update Nigerians on the final preparations for the elections.
And indeed, I'm sure you heard Kingsley say E-Day, that's election day, of course, not the D-Day. And part of the questions, your questions, we will be putting across to the experts will be, what are the expectations from the umpire? And so much is expected from them, that's INEC. What about the security agencies? How safe are the election materials, both sensitive and non-sensitive? Are Nigerians now, and now this is the very important one, are Nigerians now conversant with the voting process? All right, this is Good Morning Nigeria, Friday's edition, last for this week, and of course, eve of 2019 general elections. We are thanking all of you for staying with us on, of course, this program on NTA, the largest, of course, Africa's largest television network, the NTA. I am Claire Adelabu Abdul Razak. You're welcome.
All right, Claire, in addition to the expectations from the electoral management body, that's INEC and security agencies, there's also citizen responsibility together for the subset of those who will be voting. What are their duties? What are their responsibilities? What should they do to ensure that the elections are peaceful, free, fair, and credible? It's on that note that I would like to join my colleague, Claire, and also welcome you to this edition of the program. I'm Kingsley Osadolo. In the course of today's program, as always, we'll have our regular complimentary segments, and these are newspaper review, business, foreign, sports, and others. But first, let's take the highlights of the morning news with Musbah Dan Wahab. Good morning, Musbah.
Good morning, Kingsley and Claire. Welcome to the news. As Nigeria counts down to the elections, more foreign observers are arriving in the country to be part of the process. Latest is a delegation of the Electoral Institute of Smooth Africa, led by the former president of Zambia, Rupia Bwezani Banda, as the team visit the Independent National Electoral Commission, INEC.
We, as I have said, attach great importance to Nigeria, and we know how complex, because of the size of the country and the size of the population of Nigeria, we know how complicated these elections will be. And therefore, we wish the Nigerian people, under your leadership, Mr. Chairman, very successful elections.
In terms of security, we have been in constant touch with the security agencies, not only for your protection, but also to grant you unimpeded access to wherever you may wish to deploy.
And here is an assurance that the Presidential and National Assembly election will hold tomorrow, Saturday, 16th February, as scheduled. This is contrary to rumor making the rounds that elections are to be shifted by 5 weeks. The fact that the election will hold as scheduled was reinforced by the peace accord signed by the presidential candidate, after which President Muhammadu Buhari also met with security chiefs. Members of the public are advised to disregard the rumor and go out to discharge their civil responsibility. The forthcoming elections only constitute an impetus in consolidating democracy in the most populous nation in Africa, but the outcome will also impact on the socio-economic, political and security order of the region, given Nigeria's strategic position and influence. Former Liberian President and head of the ECOWAS Observer Mission, Ellen Johnson Sirleaf, said this at a briefing with election observers in Abuja.
Build trust and confidence in the electorates. You will also build trust in the democratic processes and enhance the legitimacy of the government that will emerge from the process.
And just so you know, Nigerians can now follow live the process of Saturday's general elections following the official inauguration of Election Analysis Center in Abuja. Experts deployed from around the world are on ground to give professional analysis of events as they unfold.
Deployment plan is 3,500 observers across the 8,809 political ward. Provide accurate and real-time analysis of events, which we've been doing in the build-up to the polls, on election day and post-election in a more captivating, enriching, and a systematic manner.
To analyze and perhaps even counter the fake news such that Nigerians are hearing accurate information on election day and afterwards, I think is so important. So with that...
Again, hate speech must be condemned on all sides. It's simply unacceptable that people of whatever party, of whatever background.
Barely 24 hours to presidential and National Assembly elections, the Kano State Police Command has intercepted a vehicle loaded with 14 bags of specimen ballot papers and 4 suspects arrested.
These ballot papers we arrested, they are not real ballot papers. They are specimen ballot papers.
Meanwhile, 17 more judges of the nation's election petitions tribunals have been sworn in. The swearing-in was performed in Abuja by the acting Chief Justice of Nigeria, Justice Ibrahim Tanko Mohammed, of the Supreme Court.
There's no doubt that you would be exposed to different forms of temptations and even blackmails. But you should know that all are aimed at testing your strength of character, honesty, and integrity.
That's a bit of the news this morning. Join us for more subsequently in the course of the day. Meanwhile, Good Morning Nigeria will continue shortly after this break with Kingsley and Claire.
What's up?
His friends didn't come.
Hey, let's practice.
But you're going out.
Don't worry about me.
Nothing satisfies a mother more than seeing a child grow up. But I know as he sweats, he'll face the risk of germs which can cause skin irritation.
That's why you need the new best ever Electoral Cool. Its new advanced formulation with extra menthol protects from up to 100 illness-causing germs and gives your family icy cool freshness.
Growing up needs Dettol protection.
Sore throats? It's often caused by bacteria and viruses. Feels like they're having a party. You need Strepsils. It soothes the pain, plus it fights the germs with 2 germ-killing actives. Double power in 1 lozenge. Bye-bye sore throat. Take Strepsils.
Your perfect family is under threat by germs. Infectious diseases are now the world's biggest killer of adults and children. These infectious diseases are caused by germs. They are everywhere. An average human being comes in contact with over 1 million germs daily in unclean water, dirty surfaces, in the toilets, on cuts and wounds, on your clothes. Germs can cause deadly diseases like typhoid, diarrhea, flu, and cough. To protect your family from germs, use the power of Dettol's 1 capful for surface cleaning, in your bathing water, in your laundry water, for first aid to protect your family from up to 100 illness-causing germs.
Introducing Dettol Antiseptic Liquid in Sachet for only 40 naira.
Endorsed by the Nigerian Medical Association.
A new edition of TV Guide is out with special focus on the role of the media in election coverage. Exclusive on the National Broadcasting Commission, its mandate as the sole regulator of Nigerian media. Dr. Toma Daba then and Ishat Modibo Kawu now. This edition also features the king of stand-up comedy in Nigeria, Ali Baba. NTA standards to be ready for election transmission after decades of abandonment. Find out from the DG transactional elections in our political space, an evil wind that blows no good. DG, National Orientation Agency Cosmos. TV Guide, your indispensable companion, x-rays the impact of social media on electioneering process as electorates present their expectations from incoming government. Meet some TV professionals behind the screen and other inspiring stories in sports, entertainment, and lots more. Grab a copy at the vendor near you or NTA stations nationwide. TV Guide, your indispensable companion.
Right, welcome back. You're watching Good Morning Nigeria on the network service of the NTA. Now, continental trade is on focus this morning on business news, and for that and other trending stories, we join Kunle Ade.
To further foster higher trade integrations among African countries, the Fund for Export Development for Africa initiative of the African Export-Import Bank (AFREXIM) is expected to provide the needed financial assistance to jumpstart trade relations among African countries. The AFREXIM President Benedict Orama noted that the benefits of trade relations in terms of economic growth, diversification of sources of income, and export development cannot be overemphasized.
There is a perception of risk in Africa that we have to find a way to deal with. And that is why we decided to put together this fund. The Fund for Export Development in Africa will be the fund that will provide the kind of protection that investors are looking for when they want to go to different markets.
In another development, the federal government has urged local and international business organizations to embrace the friendly policies of the present administration and establish businesses in the country. Director General Bureau of Public Enterprises, Mr. Alex Oko, who disclosed this, said government is committed to a private sector-driven economy. At the handover of the Terminal B Warri Old Port to a concessionaire, he said the ports are the main gateway to the country and are key to the federal government's objective of diversifying the economy. And next is graphic representation of Thursday's trading on the floor of the Nigerian Stock Exchange. With business news, I'm Kunle Adeyeye.
Thank you, Kunle, for the update on business. Next for us on the program is a review of the newspapers.
Right, Bayo is here with us as usual on a Friday, but it's going to be a very busy weekend for us.
Friday, eve of the election. Good morning, Claire. Good morning, Kingsley. Good morning, Nigeria. Eve of the election is here. 2019 will be peaceful and successful.
All right, Bayo, yeah, good to see you. Of course, the front pages of the papers are focusing on the elections, particularly the lead stories. Let's begin, though each of the papers captures it differently. Daily Independent is our first. And by the way, you have Daily Independent and The Guardian beginning their editorials on the front page of their respective papers, or otherwise having an excerpt of the editorial on the front page. So Daily Independent is our first port of call, and the lead story says tension as Nigerians decide on Buhari and Atiku tomorrow. With a number of riders there, it says IGP, that's Inspector General of Police, the acting Inspector General of Police, orders restriction of vehicular movement. Police seized 14 bags of fake ballot papers in Kano. INEC using PVCs of 1 million dead voters for polls. That's according to the PDP. And PDP threatening fire and brimstone, federal government alleges. Now, the other story there on the front page of the paper says Buhari disowns Rufai over threat on foreign observers, and says Nigeria's fate next 4 years lies on the electorate. That story jumps to page 4. And President's last-minute campaign full of fabrications and false figures. That's according to the PDP. And you can see the illustration there on the front page of the paper as though the election were a boxing bout or a boxing match scheduled for tomorrow. As I said, the other lead stories or the other papers are also on the elections. Daily Sun says as Buhari, Atiku, 72 others slug it out. 0 hour. Tension as Nigeria decides tomorrow. Federal government closes land borders today, restricts vehicular movement during poll. Details can be found inside the paper. An earpiece there, election, choice is yours. President tells Nigerians in nationwide broadcast. And below the two photographs there of the candidates of the PDP and APC, you have other headlines. That's one of them, of course, includes the arrest of 2 with 14 sacks of specimen ballot papers and 1.05 million ghost voters on INEC register. That's the claim by the PDP. 20 parties shown peace pact in Borno as 42 sign. And Zamfara, that's the kicker. Federal government, I'm twisting INEC. That's a claim by the PDP. No such directive, says Commission, and APC must contest. AGF, that's Attorney General of the Federation, insists, page 6. Clear.
All right, Kingsley, of course, we won't expect different headlines from all the papers I have. They speak the same language and, of course, the same tone. Daily Trust, however, had something that caught our interest and should be of interest to everybody, and that's the front page comment there, which tells you, let Nigeria win tomorrow. And I think that should be the attitude. But just beneath it, the lead story says, we are set for presidential National Assembly polls, and that's coming from INEC. And there's a rider as Buhari Atiku round of campaigns. And the picture story is there. Of course, there are other trending stories at the bottom, but let me quickly take again the front page of the Nigerian pilot, again speaking to the same issue, of course, of the warnings and the cautions from the president yesterday, and it's right there on the front page. Think carefully, choose wisely. You can find details of that on page 8. About 4 riders there follow that caption. And there's a picture story. Just beneath the picture story, you find INEC says reports from foreign observers will also be considered. Take a look at page 9 for the details of that. Let me take you again a little below the nameplate where you find Onoge asks appeal court to hold his arrest. Onoge asks appeal court to hold his arrest. And the other side you find NIS closes borders ahead of tomorrow's election as police restrict vehicular movement from 6 o'clock in the morning to 6 o'clock in the evening. That's 6 a.m. to 6 p.m. For the details on page 5. All right, Bayo.
Right, yes, indeed.
It's all yours.
Yes, the lead presidential candidates yesterday, President Muhammadu Buhari and the former Vice President Atiku Abubakar rounded off their campaign. President Muhammadu Buhari completed his campaign in Katsina, while former Vice President completed it in Adamawa. In a broadcast, President Muhammadu Buhari enjoined Nigerians to come out and perform their civic duty of electing who leads them in the next political dispensation. In the national broadcast, he assured Nigerians that all those visiting to observe the elections are sure of their utmost security during and after the elections. He says any comments or threats or intimidation from any source does not represent the position of the federal government. He appeals to the youths not to allow themselves to be used for violence and destruction. In the rise to the election, political parties have been rounding off their campaigns. The president, particularly that President and National Assembly elections are taking place tomorrow. But other initiatives have been adopted. Voters are now taken by surprise. Bulk SMS, short messaging system, have been now deployed to the phones of some voters. Text messages are deployed to prospective voters. First of all, they will tell you, this is your polling unit number, and this is the candidate you should vote for in the presidential, senatorial, and House of Representatives election. Some voters are protesting that this is an intrusion on their privacy, because how did they come about getting details about their voter unit? But it is not far-fetched. All political parties in the system of INEC that is transparent have been given copies of the voters' register. The reason that sending SMS messages to them is actually intrusion of their privacy. Meanwhile, workers in Edo State have been given the prerogative to close half-day today. The secretary to the Edo State government, Sarodion Ogie, says this is to enable voters travel to their local governments to fulfill their civic responsibility. On the side of preparation for election, the Inspector General of Police has ordered the restriction of vehicular movement between 6 a.m. to 6 p.m. Voters are to stay clear of the following: vote buying, vote selling, hate speech, and circulating fake news. Snatching of ballot boxes, the police says, will not be accepted. And therefore, they have also warned any set of people who attempt to truncate the will of the people will be resisted. The Chief of Defense Staff has also warned against illegal use of military or paramilitary uniforms by any sets of persons. At a briefing to service chiefs and heads of security agencies, they said they are aware of plans by some persons to use illegally uniforms of military and paramilitary agencies, impersonators will be decisively dealt with. INEC says it is ready for the Presidential and National Assembly election. National Chairman for Information and Voter Education says everything necessary to ensure success of the election has been put in place. INEC is ready, so all of us get out to your PVCs Saturday and go and vote. Voting begins at 8 o'clock and ends at 2 p.m.
All right, accreditation and voting simultaneously.
Yes.
That's right. But we'll have, of course, guests to speak further to that. But the issue of the bulk SMS that you talked about, I got a message, must have been a couple of weeks ago, indicating that they do not disturb. You know, there's a facility or a mechanism that says do not disturb so that you don't get nuisance text messages, that it was being temporarily suspended for the period of the elections to enable INEC, that's the message I got, to send messages. And I have received 1 or 2 messages from the Independent National Electoral Commission and all of us, you know, who are involved with the electioneering process. So I think that is a temporary lift, as it were, of that facility, which disables the kind of nuisance, the kind of nuisance messages that we used to get that you appropriately refer to as intrusion of the privacy of subscribers. Now, let's turn to the Guardian newspaper. As I said earlier, the Guardian has an excerpt of its editorial on the front page, but the lead story says, election, not war, U.S. tells Nigerians. With 4 riders, PDP raises alarm over ghost voters on INEC register. Buhari must respect wishes of electorate, says Atiku. And government accuses opposition of desperation. And Olawikbo Hashim, that's one of the presidential candidates, wants electoral umpire to publish list of PVCs. That's 84 million PVCs.
84,004,084 registered voters.
Where will you publish that, and who will bear the cost? All right, but I mean, that's a question to ask. All right, then you see the photographs there on the front page of the Guardian. They say the photograph on the left says a scene of cars and police station allegedly burnt by youths protesting against tomorrow's election in Anambra State. That took place yesterday. And on the right, voting materials being sorted out by INEC officials, and that was at Ibadan. Now, the second lead story of the paper says ISIS claims responsibility for attack on Shetima's convoy. Says 42 people killed, governor mourns victims and plans security meeting. And lastly there, right at the foot of the front page, as Nigerians decide, police allay fear of raid in Lagos. And PDP and Malami disagree over letter directing INEC to shift polls in Zamfara. That's on page 3. Bayo.
Yes, talking about Zamfara, the Attorney General of the Federation and Minister of Justice is said to have sent a letter to Independent National Electoral Commission to allow the All Progressive Congress in Zamfara State field candidates for the general elections. He also enjoined INEC to postpone the National Assembly, Governorship and State Assembly election in Zamfara to enable the APC field candidates. It may be recalled that the Zamfara State High Court had ruled that APC had primaries and therefore should be able to contest. However, an Abuja Federal High Court also upheld INEC position that there was no proper primaries conducted in Zamfara. The letter says that the Court of Appeal in Sokoto has upheld the appeal and annulled INEC's grounds. Therefore, Section 38 and Section 39 of the Electoral Act should provide for them to contest. An appeal against the judgment of the Zamfara High Court was also withdrawn. In the letter, the Attorney General says he received a petition from M.A. Mahmood and Co. and considered that Section 38 and 39 of the Electoral Act to extend the time for Zamfara to field candidates in the light of the Zamfara High Court's judgment. However, a human rights lawyer, Olisa Agbakoba, also a Sikh, has enjoined INEC to rebuff the letter from the Attorney General of the Federation. And he says he contends that the letter from the statutory Attorney General of the Federation, who is a member of the All Progressive Congress, is really undermining President Muhammadu Buhari's avowed commitment of transparent election and non-interference. So it's a question of lawyers now. Attorney General of the Federation acting in his capacity as the Minister of Justice. And this also raised the challenge that have always been raised, that the office of the Attorney General need to be separated from the office of the Minister of Justice, so that you don't have political appointee being in conflict with the responsibility of maintaining, being the first enforcer of law in the country.
Yeah, and you know, Olusa Agbakoba, legal senior advocate, has also written a letter on this same issue.
Yes.
Yes, he's written a letter to INEC and taking, you know, a position that is diametrically opposed, as it were, to that.
That's what you just highlighted.
Yeah, that's right. You know, so let's see how the matters play out. I do hope that, you know, going forward, because you are having a number of these issues now creeping into the election calendar, as it were, and hopefully in due course, you know, there will be other mechanisms to try to resolve some of these pre-election matters, particularly the primaries and the closeness. If you recall, when INEC released its timetable for the schedule of activities, and that's also the timetable for the 2019 elections, you know, there were concerns as to, you know, how some of these matters might be resolved. What is happening now has to do with the primaries of Zamfara that took place around September, October last year. And you also have an incident playing out in Port Harcourt yesterday. You know, some supporters of the APC barricaded the offices of INEC, saying that their candidates for the elections must be allowed, you know, to run in tomorrow's election. That's to say, the National Assembly elections.
Well, the case of River has been put to paid because the Supreme Court has ruled on that. And because the Supreme Court is the finality, they can be said to be infallible as far as that is concerned. So decision on that has been ruled. But in the case of Zamfara, in fact, there is an appeal to the High Court judgment from the Federal Capital Territory fixed 2 days before the elections. So it's still in works as far as the court process is concerned.
All right, let's quickly take the editorials, and it's taken today from the New Telegraph, and the caption is by the huge task before INEC. Of course, New Telegraph has described this task. It said, if you say it's monumental, it's, you know, mildly put. But the crux of the editorial, the crux of the matter from this perspective, is that the you know, political parties, you know, increased from 5 to 6 to 37 and now to 91. Now that makes, of course, the, you know, logistic challenge facing INEC, you know, very, very huge.
Well, my sympathy is with INEC, but INEC has indicated that it is up to the task and it will do the best it can. And that is why there has been campaign. The kernel of the editorial is that as far back as 1975, when we had election, there were only 5 political parties. By the 6 years later, in 1983 rather, there were 6 political parties. By 2003, there were 37. And 2019, here we are, 91 political parties, with 73 of them contesting presidential election. This brings a challenge with the ballot paper. That was why there has been campaigning about how to
either thumbprint or index print.
Ideally, when you do a voter registration, all your 10 fingers have already been captured. And ideally, when you are voting, either of them could be. But because the space for it is so small, that is why you are advised to use, if possible, index finger, or if you can use the smallest of your finger, so that the ink mark you mark on the party of your choice will not stain that of another and thereby invalidate your vote. That has been the challenge, but the editorial is saying that there has not been enough education from INEC, from the National Orientation Agency, as well as political parties. And that is rather crying too late, because we have less than 24 hours to voting. But we will learn our lessons from that, but in future, subsequently, yes, I think the size of the political parties, put mildly, is very unwieldy. INEC did something in the past when the law allowed them for, if a party did not get a certain percentage, to be deregistered. INEC did that, and it was nullified in court.
Having a national spread,
yes,
for instance.
And so that is now a big challenge. I think subsequently, our politicians, our legislators must look back at our laws and try
we will have a lot of outcomes, lessons learned and all that, you know, after this election. And of course...
No doubt about that, particularly the numbers regarding invalid votes.
Yes.
That will be very crucial. Because you can't have a ballot paper that looks like a wrapper, you know, and how many yards, 6 yards, you know, you could make up and down with it. And how do you deal with that? How do you deal with that?
And the voter will have 3 of them.
Yeah, and some of the candidates were already withdrawing from the race. And INEC said, last minute, where are you going? You must be on the...
You can't withdraw.
You can't withdraw, So there are all kinds of issues relating to a number of political parties. But INEC, if you recall, was threatening to register more parties. So maybe we could have a century of parties.
Anyway, all this, today is the eve and tomorrow is election. After the election, of course, we'll come back here to review, of course, to know, the way forward.
But the best message, final message is, when you vote, roll over your ballot paper carefully. Make sure that the ink does not stain. Fold it flat so that it can go straight into the ballot.
That will be part of our situation report today as we take on this discussion segment. Bayot, thank you.
Thank you,
and
too.
Please be careful tomorrow. Go and exercise. I shouldn't be telling you that.
I observed election.
And observe the elections. Yes. All right. This is Good Morning Nigeria. That ends our newspaper review. We'll be right back to kickstart our discussion.
Aerial Assurance Challenge.
Oh, thank you. But what assurance can you give our daughter?
Everything. With the new look Aerial, I can even do the laundry.
Prove it then.
Okay. Let's make this stain even tougher. Now, let's wash the cloth with your detergent and with new look Aerial. Do you believe me now?
Aerial, now in a new look pack.
A new edition of TV Guide is out with special focus on the role of the media in election coverage. Exclusive on the National Broadcasting Commission, its mandate as the sole regulator of Nigerian media. Dr. Toba Daba then and Ishak Modibo Kawu now. This edition also features the king of stand-up comedy in Nigeria, Ali Baba. NTA standards to be ready for election transmission after decades of abandonment. Find out from the DG transactional elections in our political space. An evil wind that blows no good. DG, National Orientation Agency caution. TV Guide, your indispensable companion, x-rays the impact of social media on electioneering process as electorates present their expectations from incoming government. Meet some TV professionals behind the screen and other inspiring stories in sports, entertainment, and lots more. Grab a copy at the vendor near you or NTA stations nationwide. TV Guide, your indispensable companion.
Getting around heartburn and indigestion can be tricky if you eat too much. Eat food that is too spicy or greasy, or lie down after eating. Heartburn and indigestion could always be around the corner. When they come, be prepared with Gaviscon Double Action. It works within 3 minutes and lasts up to 8 hours. Gaviscon Double Action. Many causes, one solution.
Your perfect family is under threat by germs. Infectious diseases are now the world's biggest killer of adults and children. These infectious diseases are caused by germs. They are everywhere. An average human being comes in contact with over 1 million germs daily in unclean water, dirty surfaces, in the toilets, on cuts and wounds, on your clothes. Germs can cause deadly diseases like typhoid, diarrhea, flu, and cough. To protect your family from germs, use the power of Dettol's One Capful for surface cleaning in your bathing water, in your laundry water, for first aid to protect your family from up to 100 illness-causing germs.
Introducing Dettol Antiseptic Liquid in Sachet for only 40 Naira.
Endorsed by the Nigerian Medical Association.
All right, you're welcome back, and it's still Good Morning Nigeria, reaching you live on the network service of the Nigerian Television Authority. Today, of course, we are taking on Nigeria on the election eve situation report. We already have guests with us in the studios, but we'll take some situation reports from our network centers. Let's go over now to Maiduguri and get a report put together by correspondent Mohammed Ibrahim with regard to the preparations for the election.
These are INEC ad hoc staff ready to be deployed to Bama local government area for the election duty.
According to INEC Borno State, all non-sensitive materials have reached registration area centers while sensitive materials will be distributed from 4 p.m. Friday in a transparent manner.
The presiding officers who are the polling unit will now collect these materials in the presence of the party agents, the security personnel, as well as all the poll officials.
The electoral management body further disclosed that voting in Borno State will be done in 3,933 polling units, noting that 3 local government areas are inaccessible, namely Abadam, Guzamala, and Marte, due to security challenges. Observers drawn from ECOWAS, European Union, and civil societies are already on ground to assess and report on the elections.
Kudos to the INEC, especially in Borno State here, is about their level of engagement. The civil society were carried along by the INEC, and then even the journalists, the academia, every stakeholders was provided a platform to sit and then discuss issues.
Some political parties have, however, called for intensive security to enable them access areas in terms of sending agents to hard-to-reach areas, such as Kala Balge, who are billed to vote in neighboring Ngala local government area of Borno Central Senatorial District.
Right, thank you, Muhammad Ibrahim, for that report. Pius Amechi also put together a report from Enugu State.
Since the registration of voters, collection of permanent voters' card that is gradually culminating to the election proper, the various INEC offices in Enugu State have been characterized by various activities. As an umpire and a critical stakeholder in the electoral process, the Commission is working round the clock to provide materials and other logistics to ensure free, fair, and credible elections. In Enugu, the resident electoral commissioner, Emeka Ononamadu, told NTA News that INEC in the state has taken delivery of electoral materials needed for the successful conduct of the exercise in the state.
We've moved all the non-sensitive materials down to the 17 local government areas for sorting and onward distribution to the voting locations.
For the physically challenged eligible voters, the Commissioner disclosed that special arrangements have also been made to ensure that they participate in the exercise without any hitch. All the card readers earmarked for use at the 4,145 polling centers spread across the 17 local government areas in Enugu State, he stressed, have been tested and in good working condition. Ononamadu assured that INEC, the police, and other security agencies are working assiduously to ensure a violence-free exercise in the state. This is the new collation center. It's a 200 capacity hall that will accommodate more people, more political parties, INEC officials, and all the stakeholders involved in the collation of election results. Completion work is at 90%, as we were told.
All right, correspondents there. Thank you very much. Maiduguri first, and then Enugu a while ago, giving us the situation report from their locations. But with us here in the Abuja studios to discuss these issues in greater detail, we'd like to welcome Oluwole Osazeuzi, who is Director of Voter Education and Publicity for the Independent National Electoral Commission. Oluwole Ozi, pleasure to have you with us on the program.
Thank you for having me. Good morning.
We will allow you put on your INEC badged shirt. You're advertising INEC, so we won't charge you for that today. It's a national institution. So, Osazeuzi, pleasure to have you with us on the program. We also have with us, of course, always in uniform, Assistant Commissioner of Police, First Public Relations Officer, Frank Umba. Pleasure to have you with us, ACP.
Thank you, and good morning, Nigerians.
Okay. And last but not the least from me would be Lazarus Api, who is an election associate at the Center for Democracy and Development. Lazarus, good to have you.
Welcome, and thank you.
All right, Kingsley, let's go to Borno State, where we have the Mr. Micah Lakumna, Head of Voter Education and Publicity, INEC. Thank you very much, Mr. Lakumna, for joining us. And we turn to Enugu, where Emeka Ononamadu has also joined us. He is the INEC rec. Thank you, Mr. Ononamadu, for finding time to be here.
Thank you for having me.
All right, Kingsley.
All right, well, let's begin with INEC. Osaze, elections are tomorrow.
Correct.
Already away.
Well, I'm happy that you have my commissioner and my colleague out there in the field. From the headquarters, we really don't conduct the elections. Elections are conducted in the states and in the field. And from all the reports that we've had so far, I think we're quite set for the election. Recall that you made reference to it earlier, that we issued a timetable and schedule of activities in January of 2017. And we listed 14, there's a 14 lines of activities to be undertaken. And all have been undertaken successfully, and all were undertaken within the time stipulated. Apart from that timetable and schedule, we have an election project plan, which is an internal document, and it lists out every activity, every dependency, who's to lead what, who's to collaborate, and so far so good. Everything has gone almost in accordance with how it was planned. So the implementation, I think, is a very, very good plan, and so far we're impressed with the level of implementation that we've put in place. Yes, one or two things did not go as well as they would have gone, but it's such that the plan B, if plan A did not work so well, plan B kicked in. And so we've recruited personnel, trained them and retrained them for all levels of work there, to do ad hoc personnel for presiding officers, assistant presiding officers, for collation officers, for, of course, the returning officer for the presidential election is the Chief Electoral Commissioner of the Federal Republic of Nigeria, who is the chairman of the commission. He's ready for his job. We've trained the other returning officers for all the other categories of elections. We've deployed technology. Card readers are there. We had the unfortunate incidents of so many card readers, over 5,000 card readers destroyed in Anambra. We had to mop up card readers, the excesses from all of the states. And as at 10 p.m. yesterday, I think about 15 local governments had been reconfigured and ready and deployed to the various local governments. We only had 7. I have not been in touch this morning, but I expect that by now all the card readers for Anambra, which was the last state because of the destruction of their card readers, are ready. In terms of logistics, you covered the signing of the MOU with the National Union of Road Transport Workers and NATO, and that has been replicated, domesticated in the states. And the reports reaching us have been quite positive that, yes, they've gotten the kind of collaboration they want with these owners and operators of the vehicles. So we're hoping logistics are there. Then, for logistics, there what we call the RAC centers, restaurant area camps, where the young men and women who are going to do the actual conduct of the election will be camped tonight. So materials should get to them this evening, and they stay there overnight, such that they'll be much, much nearer to the polling units come election day. And our target is to ensure that between 7 and 7:30, all the polling units should have been set up and be ready, waiting for the voters. That's the target. So this issue that has always bedeviled quite a number of our elections in the I would say distant past of late arrival of materials in many centers, we hope will not reoccur, because we use the off-cycle elections to try to get things right. And I'm pleased to note that in the last off-cycle election in Osun, all the polling stations opened on time.
So, you know, Kingsley Area kept describing the size of the booklet as, you know, a wrapper, and that speaks to, you know, the length of it and all that. Could you also enlighten us about how easy it will be for the voter, you know, to be able to, you know, to exercise his franchise?
Yes, and as you know, there are 91 registered political parties. Each was entitled to produce candidates, and 73 of those parties chose to produce candidates for the presidential election. The ballot papers are customized according to the election, according to the locality. For the presidential, there will be 73 parties on the ballot. We had two choices, either to do it the traditional way of one on top of the other, and what we call the snake, the long wrapper, as Kingsley would say. And but we said, no, maybe that would probably be too long. It would be like a toilet roll, basically. We said that would be too long. So what do? We now did what we call the grid system. I don't know whether your cameras can pick up. Okay. I did bring a specimen of a sample ballot paper. That is a grid. So we had three lines of
is that the one with the specimen of ballot paper?
Specimen had to be marked on it in case somebody wanted to cut it out and reproduce it. Of course, the one we'll use has security features. This does not have. It's just for purposes of voter education and enlightening the public. So there are three, and as you can see, there isn't too much space in between the political parties.
We don't have it on screen yet. Okay, fine. There it is.
Great. So you are entitled to use any finger, your thumb, if you so choose, any finger. We encourage people to use the tip. The essence is that it should not cross over from one party to the other. If you put your finger and it crosses over, your ballot is invalid, regrettably, because we cannot be sure what was your choice. Even if it's more on one side, but it crossed over to the other side, we're not sure of your choice. So we encourage Nigerians to use the tip of their finger, any finger they choose. So we encourage the pinky finger, the smallest finger. That's the smallest finger. So, but if your thumb is not so big, you can choose to use that. But if you use the very tip of it and just go like that, or this, or that, it'll be okay for us, as long as your choice is clear and does not go over to another one. This was the best we could do under the circumstances. So 73 parties are listed on there as those who sponsored candidates for the election.
Yeah, well, still focusing on the specimen ballot paper that we have there on the screen. We're describing this now as a grid system, but this is for the presidential election. In terms of numbers, 73 parties are fielding candidates.
Correct.
Is it for both the presidential and the National Assembly elections?
No.
Okay.
That's why in this specimen, we actually marked it for presidential election.
Okay.
In each constituency, each senatorial district, they vary. Some might have as few as 3, 4, others might have 20. But I don't think, I'm not aware of any senatorial district or federal constituency where there are as many as 73. I think interest was highest in the presidential. Ironically, I don't know why that is so, but that's how we found it. It's the parties that indicated their choices, that these are the number of people who want to. There are some parties that only fielded 2, 3 candidates for specific targeted elections. I did not field presidential candidates. They felt we're not ripe for it yet. We're going to build from bottoms up. There are some that fielded presidential candidates and not field too many other candidates. That's their choice. But I tell parties to be conscious of the amendment, the 4th alteration to the Constitution, which gives the Commission power to delist parties if they don't score a certain threshold of votes or win seats.
You know the way we are, I mean, we being Nigerians, you know, would it be proper, given the size of, you know, the space size where you thumbprint, would it be proper to say, because if you look at the thumb, it's quite big. I mean, I haven't seen anybody with a very smaller, you know, thumb. So would it be proper to say, look, the thumb might be, you know, bigger than the space. So use your index, because the index seems to fit the size, the space.
Yes, we have said it. You can use any finger. You can only use a pinky finger, which is the smallest finger. Something went around a couple of days ago on social media that INEC surreptitiously has banned the use of thumb. But ironically, these posters were printed a few weeks ago, and the demonstration of a correct way to thumb, I could use the thumb. You know, but you can use, it's best to use the tip of any of your fingers just to ensure that it doesn't cross over.
Yeah, crossing over, invalidity, I'm sure, but you're familiar with this, and the other guests will also speak to this. When when a ballot paper is being deemed invalid, sometimes when is it crossover? You can see, I don't know whether, I'm sure the parties would have also raised issues with this. Yes. Is it when there's no demonstration of that? Is it when it crosses the line immediately below it, or it's smudged to the right, or when is it invalid? At the point you have made, Saza, is clear that, look, all you need is use any of your fingers. If your thumbs are, you know, excessively sized, you know, you look for the smallest and just put it there and then tip it. That's all. Just the mark. But when is it invalid? For instance, you see the specimen there. If it crosses, is it when it crosses the box or what?
Well, each political party has a symbol and its acronym on the ballot. If you put it on that, fine. But there's a box specifically. If it crosses between the box and the acronym, that's not a problem, because it's on the same line and we know the party you're voting for. But if it crosses from top to bottom or bottom to top, if there are other parties below or above it, if it crosses over significantly,
it becomes indeterminate.
It becomes indeterminate. And usually, there's what it says after voting, there's sorting and counting. And the sorting means you separate them, and then you show the presiding officer shows the party agents. Everybody says valid, you know. If it's for X, say party X, you put it in the pile for party X. If it's for party Y, you put it in the pile for party Y. If I cannot tell whether it's party X or party Y because it's between the two, even if it's more prominent in another place, that's an indeterminate vote, and it will set aside as an invalid vote.
So how do you handle this? This one looks like a 4-yard wrapper now. How do you handle it? It's not like that's what we are saying.
Well, indeed, just like if this were the ballot paper now, you'll use any finger, indicate your choice. Haven't done so. We are using quick dry ink so that it doesn't smudge as much as we possibly can avoid it, but you never know. Then you fold it inwards. On the printed side, where you have indicated, you now fold it inwards. The presiding officer, in handing over the ballot to you before you cast it, will show you how, in any case. But you fold it inwards, facing the thing. Because when you fold inwards, you see that it's the back of this that is touching the side. So you fold it inwards, the same side of it, you fold it that way. The whole essence of folding is that nobody should see your choice. When you have indicated it, you fold it in your, and then you flatten it so that it can go little into the slits that goes in there.
How many seconds does it take the ink to dry?
A couple of seconds, but it will vary according to how much ink you have on your fingers. But it could take a couple of seconds. Just with the milk.
If you
the better, but as long as the mark is clear, that's all.
Yeah. If you thumbprint, let's say this is side A. Just go by it again one more time. I said yes. This is the printed. This is where you have the political parties and their logo, and then you have already
indicated
thumbprinted. Yes. Okay. That's the surface that you are showing now.
Yes.
So
you go right around and you wrap it.
Okay.
You roll it. You roll it. And then, so that it can go in. But if you don't flatten it, it won't go in. So whichever way, do it in such a way that it can go into the slot in the ballot.
Okay. Yes. I still like to take you on the issue of logistics, because that was the crux of the editorials on one of the papers today. And the concern was that, okay, in the past, you've always had this arrangement with, other, stakeholders in terms of vehicles and all that. And we've also always had the issue of late arrival of materials and all that. Now you have, how many? 71 parties?
91 parties.
91 parties? Correct. I mean, the voter, Nigerians need reassurance that this time around we're not going to have issues of, again, okay, this is a done deal in terms of logistics.
Well, I don't think the number of parties really determine logistics of arrival of polling units, quite honestly. I think the logistics of large numbers of parties deals with crowd management, and the security agencies, thank God, Police Commissioner, I say, will speak more to that, is that, like the presidential election, 73 party agents, if they submitted a list of agents, are entitled to be there. I think that's what it has to do with it. But factually, it's not correct that we've always had agreement with stakeholders. In the past, we've tried several methods. Part of it is to go to discuss with the owners or the operators of the directly. That had its own challenges. So we thought now maybe it's better to have it with the unions, with the owners, as represented by their associations. So not only do we have their guarantee, we have their protection, their cover, they have a possibility of sanctioning their people if they don't live up to their obligations. So we sign an MOU. They will now sign a binding contract with the unions and the owners. I will now sign a binding contract with the individuals. But we're not interested in taking anybody to court, because it's not a commercial thing. It's a service that we're performing, but you are rewarded for your service, and you'll help us in the logistics delivery of that service. So it's not the financial bit that bothers us, but the fact that we can hold you bound to, in terms of that, and we have the guarantee of a larger body of your association, of your union, who you pay dues to, who is protective of you, who protects your interests, but also can sanction you when you depart from the laid down procedures.
All right. Sazelzi, thank you. Let's keep you on pause in the meantime. Bring in the Assistant Commissioner of Police, who is in charge of public relations for the police. Frank Umba, how ready are the security agencies led by the Nigerian police?
I think we're on the same page with INEC, and I can say with every sense of responsibility that we are also ready. We've done everything that needed to be done. We've trained our personnel extensively for the task ahead. We conducted all kinds of training, both the ones that were designed in-house and delivered by officers of the Nigerian Police Force. We also took trainings from international agencies, some of them with the support of EU and other international donors. A lot of the civil society groups in Nigeria, most of them indigenous, also helped and participated in delivering some of the core trainings we had. So in that regard, our personnel have been adequately prepared for the elections. We have also conducted enough security threat analysis. A lot of the threats that we noted in the course of the analysis have been identified, isolated, and quite a number of them neutralized. As I speak to you, we've already started deployment. We have a very special team called the Election Monitoring Intelligence Teams. They are all out on the field already. Part of the reason why we did that is to we try to introduce an early warning mechanism, and so the election monitoring intelligence teams out there are part of those early warning monitoring mechanisms that we are putting in place. They are out there churning in intelligence about what is on ground and what is happening in the field, and we're also analyzing those ones and using them again to rearrange some of the arrangements we put in place. But I can say generally that our deployment strategies are already perfected.
Okay. I'm going to take you up on police, media men or pressmen, journalists relationship during elections. This is an election that has attracted large number of, press, attention, and a lot of pressmen will be covering this election. Sometimes pressmen, in the course of their duty, get in the way of security issues. What are you telling pressmen at this time in terms of their security, in terms of their safety during this period?
Well, the good thing here is that our duties are clearly cut out for us, not just by the Constitution or by the Police Act, but also by the Electoral Act itself. And so we know basically what we should do and what we're looking out for. The protection of the lives of accredited journalists covering the elections is also part of our core responsibility, just as it is also our responsibility to provide adequate security for INEC officials covering these elections, whether they are ad hoc or whether they are permanent. And in this regard, the IGP has actually given very special and specific directives about paying very special attention to the lives of the core members who will be assisting INEC in the conduct of this election or playing some vital roles.
Any of such special directives for journalists?
Journalists, INEC officials, international observers, local observers, the candidates contesting the election, the electorates, the ordinary citizens who will be turning out on tomorrow to go and cast their vote, they are all receiving very special and specific protection from the Nigerian police force, working in partnership with other security agencies. So journalists can actually go to bed trusting that we are working round the clock to provide them with adequate security. The only thing here is, if you are a journalist and you have not been duly accredited by INEC to cover this election, please, there will be no need for you to come out and wear the cap of a journalist. Just come out like every other electorate, every other citizen, cast your vote and go home, because without that accreditation, you will not be allowed to operate under the toga, under the label of being a media person. Just like if you're an observer or a monitor in this election, whether you're local or international, and then you don't have an accreditation from INEC, of course, we will keep you out there. And that is also applicable to policemen. You discover that even our operatives that will be deployed for this election, they will be wearing special tags, because we need to make sure that we close every possible gap for people to infiltrate and possibly disrupt the security arrangements. Ours is just to provide security cover for INEC. Ours is just to make sure we provide a safe, secure, and enabling environment for INEC to deliver on its core mandate.
All right, SAP Franco, thank you very much. You've raised a number of points, but let's go over to Maiduguri before we bring in Lazarus to make his comment. Lazarus was with us in the Abuja studios. But over to Maiduguri, Micah Luknumna. Sorry, I'm struggling with...
Lakumna.
Oh, Lakumna. lacuna. Wale is a lawyer. He knows where we use the word lacuna, but this is lacuna. Sorry. Thank you very much, Micah is head of voter education and publicity for INEC in Borno State. We all know the special status, if you like, of Borno at this time, and it's been so for some years now. Tell us what special arrangements, if any, with regard to the IDPs and some of the locations that are not quite safe for everyday activities.
As Nigeria decides tomorrow, INEC, Borno State have this special issue of IDP voting. IDP voting, we have 8 IDP camps. These IDP camps are located in 8 different places. For example, we have Guzamala, Abadam, Marte, Kukawa, Mobar, Bama, and as well Mongono. Now, these places, because of the IDP voting system, we have placed in such places the officers who will be in charge of those places, because we know that in IDP voting is you are shrinking a larger place to a smaller place, since these people are in the IDP camps. And where in an IDP camp, you have the local government INEC officials, where you have the delimitation or the polling units are assigned according to the RAs, that is the registration areas. Now, these registration areas have their polling units, and it is under the RAs or the registration areas where you have the voters line up according to their polling units. Now, after the lineup, we also know that at the IDPs, because the requirement, like the card readers and the officials who will be assigned there, equals to as it would have been anywhere, i.e., we have the presiding officer, we have the assistant presiding officer 1, assistant presiding officer 2, assistant presiding officer 3. All these officials are assigned to a polling unit. The polling units are, as I said earlier, are located where you indicate you have a symbol or a signpost where it shows a particular RA under the local government. Now, it is under this that you have all the local governments, like I earlier said, the 8 local governments that will be voting in the IDPs. For example, Abadam is Mogolis. Mogolis is here in Maiduguri. We have Guzamala. Guzamala will be in Mongono. We have Marte. Marte will also be in Mongono. Kukawa. Kukawa will be in Teachers Village here in Maiduguri. We have Mobar and Dikwa. Dikwa will be in Dikwa, as well as in Ngala. Ngala will also be in Ngala. And all these places, because the local governments that I mentioned have been moved from where they are as a result of the insurgency. That is where they are in those places we have mentioned. But they are in their camps. Like Bama, Bama will be having their elections in Bama and Banki. We have elections that will be conducted on up to PU levels. These are places where we don't have issue of insurgency. That is like in the southern senatorial zone. But for local governments that are mentioned, these local governments will have theirs, some to RA level, while others will be at the local government headquarters. And we have those that we have mentioned, the 3 inaccessible, which are Marte, Guzamala, and Abadam. These ones as I say, Abadam will be here in Maiduguri. They will be having their voting here in Maiduguri, Mogolis, that is College for Islamic Studies. Now, these arrangements have been put, as well as before this time, we carry sensitization to these places where we have the IDPs. Because of recent, like we have Kalabalge. Kalabalge was affected just some few weeks ago, and they have moved. They will be having their elections in Gala. These arrangements have been made through the collaboration of the INEC and the major stakeholders. These major stakeholders are the ICSES, the political parties, that is IPAC, as well as civil societies who are interested, and as well the SEMA, because they take care of the IDPs. They are also their stakeholders. We have to involve them in order to see that there is hitch and free elections conducted in those places.
All right, thank you, Mr. Lakumna. But I also like you to be brief with this, your response to my next question. You must have listened to Mr. Saze here talk about the technicalities involved in the actual voting to avoid void votes. How conversant are those living in those camps with this process, the voting process, the process of thumb printing or index printing?
Thank you. You know, in all the local governments, we have voter education desk officers. The duty of the voter education desk officers is to educate the voters. Now that we have 73 political parties for the presidential election, we carried out sensitization. In most cases, what we did was that we had interaction just like we would have it in other local governments where there are no interruptions. We have carried out voter education extensively. This is in order to give them the understanding of what it will be to avoid invalid votes.
Thank you very much, Micah. We'll come back to you later on in the course of the conversation. Let's go over now to Enugu, where we earlier introduced the resident electoral commissioner, Mr. Emeka Ononamdo. Mr. Emeka Ononamdo, tell us, how prepared INEC is, let's say your commission, for the elections against the background of, continuing reports of threats of boycott and associated threats of violence.
In Enugu, I think we are good to go. As I speak, all the non-sensitive materials have been delivered to the 17 local government areas and are being sorted out so that by this evening they will be moving to the registration area centers where we are going to house all our ad hoc staff and securities for the particular ward. Again, the issue of boycott, I don't think it is gaining ground here because I'm wondering how someone would take a call from somebody to give up his right to elect his leader or representative. From the feelers I have here, it's not gaining ground, and people are regarding that particular call. On our own part, we have had a sustained publicity of our process and the significance of the election to lives and livelihood of Nigerians. And I think Enugu people are set to increase their level of participation in the previous elections this time around. So from all indications, there is nothing that will be an encumbrance to a successful and a credible election in Enugu State.
Ononamado, I know that stakeholders or participants also signed their own peace accord in Enugu. Can you give us an insight into how that is impacting on a successful, conduct of the elections?
First of all, I understand that peace accord is very essential because it prepares them psychologically for the relationships they will have, the level of tolerance and the level of decorum they need to apply in conducting their campaigns. And so far, so good. We've not had any case of violence during the campaigns. Therefore, we are not expecting any violence during the elections proper, because one thing leads to another. And so far, so good in that direction. Generally, Enugu is calm. Enugu has been peaceful and is adjudged to be one of the most peaceful in the southeast during conduct of major elections in Nigeria. And I'm not sure they will depart from that path this time around.
Thank you very much, Mecca, speaking to us there from Enugu. We'll come back to you later on in the course of the conversation. Now, Lazarus Api, who is an election associate at the Center for Democracy and Development. We, of course, have listened to the three INEC officials and the first public relations officer give us an indication of the level of preparedness for the elections beginning tomorrow. What are your thoughts and concerns, if any?
Thank you, Kingsley. I think for us in the civil society, a couple of things stand out for these 2019 elections generally. First is that we are likely to have the 6th consecutive national elections, which since the return to the Fourth Republic, return to democratic governance, has been uninterrupted. That is 20 years of the people deciding their leaders. That's very commendable, and we are celebrating that. However, for us at the CDD especially, the quantum of fake news and disinformation that has characterized this campaign is worrying. But thankfully, we have also deployed a very strong desk to fact-check some of these fake news. You hear people just wake up and say one candidate endorses the other and has stepped down from the race, even when they're already on the ballot. And all of this kind of disinformation. And that is worrying because some electorates may not have the privilege of later hearing from the candidate whether they're still in the race or not. So that's on one side. On the other side is the fact that Nigeria generally is very huge, and with 84+ million people to attend to in this election, logistics is going to be something of a concern. We can hear all the readiness and preparedness from the stakeholders like INEC, like security, but in fact, one can never be too prepared. So we are worried. Not worried because we don't trust the stakeholders, but because we want them to really be on top of their game as we go into this one. For security, there are ongoing threats that are actually very real and have been, even as recent as in the last week, we have had killings in Zamfara and in other parts of the country. And so to assume that the preparedness by the security agencies is enough, it's a hasty conclusion. We will want to see them really be on top of their game because tensions rise when elections are also involved. And we have done some analysis on the level of violence and security threats to this election. And some states are most likely flashpoints. And we hope that the security, we are very happy to hear this morning when the Assistant Commissioner of Police mentioned the fact that they have deployed an intelligence team in all states. Because deploying people to just go for election is not enough. They need to contextualize their deployment by being on ground for a while, listening to the rumors on the street, and at that level, they are able to neutralize some of these threats more. So it's very commendable that they have these intelligence units on ground for the 2019. It means they are not going to be ambushed by some of these threats. And we do hope that some of the states that already stood up with some of these loud threats have been also featured prominently in such deployment. So generally for we, the civil society, we have also all gotten our accreditation, even though it came late in the day and we are struggling to make sure we put it in the hands of our accredited observers. We are all ready to keep an eye on the process for the citizens. We do this for God and country, as we say, and for the Nigerian people. And we want to give them the full assurances of the civil society to observe this election and give very honest reports where it stands. You know, elections for an average Nigerian is what they see in one polling unit. But then it tends to shape a lot of perception for what the election was. It is when we observe that we're able to give them an overall perception of what the election truly is. So we are going to keep an eye on the process, and we are going to tell Nigerians what went down. We are also calling on Nigerians. Because we are watching, it's very possible that things could go wrong, but they should not take to violence, as there will be abundant of evidence to seek legal redress to any infractions they perceive.
Ape, just a quick one now from you. From your interactions, what do you think are the, apart from security, are the issues of concern to the electorate with regards to the voting process? Do you think they are adequately, enlightened?
You see, given our level of literacy in this country, they can never be truly enlightened enough, because some people are even not having sufficient access to information. And given the fact that in most cases the task of voter education is left to INEC, civil society, and some agencies like the National Accreditation Agency, the political parties who really need these votes do not commit sufficiently to voter education. You would see that this issue of index finger voting, they have harped on it so much in the last 3 days. Why were they not all out practically taking specimen ballot papers to citizens in markets, in churches, and helping to show them how to vote for them, the political parties? They come with this ad hoc approach to it, even when they know elections is going to be the next 4 years.
Is that likely to be an issue?
Yes, because in 2015, we had on the average 22,000 voided ballots across the country, in every state on the average. That's, if you put that together, that's huge number of votes that could change the outcome of an election. Some senatorial elections are won with less than 20,000 votes. I mean, in the margin. Yeah. So if they really also join INEC, civil society, and the National Accreditation Agency early in the day to conduct this voter education that is very practical, that is right in the hands of the people, like how to practically thumb print the ballot or index print the ballot or whatever finger they feel it's best, I think will reduce the number of voided ballots, and that will be very helpful.
All right, Lazarus Appeal, thank you very much. And gentlemen, we'll take a short break now. When we return, we'll continue with the conversation, plus taking some of the tweets that have come in.
I was a little girl. I loved spending time with Mum and Grandma cleaning the house. I was so excited to sing in the choir. And your shirts are always so white. I knew what Mum's secret was. Today, I'm a modern woman that still trusts the secrets passed down to me. It's Jik, of course. The original trusted bleach, which can be used all around your house for amazing results. Shh, it's our little secret. It's no secret. It's Jik's best ever extra whitening power. Just Jik it.
Getting around heartburn and indigestion can be tricky if you eat too much. Eat food that is too spicy or greasy, or lie down after eating. Heartburn and indigestion could always be around the corner. When they come, be prepared with Gaviscon Double Action. It works within 3 minutes and lasts up to 8 hours. Gaviscon Double Action. Many causes, one solution.
Team huddle.
But we lost.
Don't be tired, guys. This isn't a loss. It's a practice for winning.
Nothing makes a mother prouder than seeing her child growing up. But I know as he learns to lead, he'll face even more dirt, germs, and risk of illness.
That's why in changing seasons, you need strong Dettol protection. Because Dettol protects from up to 100 illness-causing germs.
Growing up needs Dettol protection.
All right, you're welcome back to Good Morning Nigeria. Let's take some of the tweets that we have now, Clay, and then return to the guest. Omen Kalu has this tweet. INEC should be apolitical and security should be professional, and electorates should be responsible, while politicians should not see it as a do-or-die affair. Election is not worth the spilling of blood. That's a authoritative advisory.
Indeed. Lawal Olaya tweets, let's be civil and behave well during voting process. After all, both the security and INEC personnel are all Nigerians, and if we don't induce them with money, I'm sure they will perform well. Nigeria, vote, not fight.
That's right. Mike Ayakwo has this praise for the NTA. It says, big thanks to NTA, Good Morning Nigeria, for your positive contributions to the 2019 general elections. Your unbiased reportage, good analysis, and mature guests at your disposal are worthy of emulation. Wish that your crew members will be on the field, especially those states regarded as flashpoints. And indeed, as you very well know, NTA is Africa's largest TV network. We are present in all the 36 states of the Federation and the FCT, and our reporters have all been deployed.
Indeed, Kingsley, I think we must really blow our top, because this election coverage promises to be...
Blow our trumpet.
Yes. It promises to be the best, the most professional. And of course, we're going to apply our ICTs. We're going to apply the use of technology, you know, to bring you, of course, the coverage. So you stay tuned to, of course, the network of choice.
And by the way, in addition to our regular programming, of which NTA Good Morning Nigeria is one, there is also Nigeria Decides. The studio was launched yesterday at 4:30 p.m. and it ran up to 5 p.m. yesterday. The studios for Nigeria Decides will reopen for the network service transmission at 12 noon later today. And of course, Saturday and Sunday and beyond, you will have regular times for Nigeria Decides Studios on the network service of the Nigerian Television Authority.
Indeed. So wherever you are, you can rest assured your interests will be protected. But let's get on now with more tweets. Saidu Mohammed Lawal, regardless of how prepared INEC and the security agencies are, it seems there'll always be those who have planned to rig or trigger violence. There is a limit to which security forces can prevent or tackle electoral violence. The electorate must shun violence no matter what.
Now, Mustafa Bukar Kolo tweets, I call on security agencies to be neutral and play fairly in terms of executing their job. And for the electorate, hate speech must be avoided. And of course, everyone should obey the rules and guidelines. For politicians, be patient and accept the outcome of the results. God bless Nigeria.
Indeed, God bless Nigeria. And I like this next tweet. It's coming from, Twitter handle that says, Cure My Nation. And it says, as for me and my household, we are fully prepared to vote candidate of our choice. We shall exercise our franchise in a decent and respectful manner. Again, he says, God bless Nigeria.
Absolutely. So Festus Akimboyawa continues in the same vein, says, INEC, security agencies and voters must ensure that we have free, fair and peaceful elections that we all can be proud of. The electorate must shun violence during voting and wait patiently for the official announcement of results by INEC. Once again, wait patiently for the official announcement of results by INEC. INEC is the only entity designated and recognized by law to announce results. All right, those are the tweets that we're having in the meantime. Let's bring in again Oluwole Osaze-Ozi, INEC Director in charge of voter education and publicity. Two issues, but I'll take the first one. Accreditation. Lazarus was saying that it was only until the last minute that election observers were able to get the accreditation. There have also been reports of media practitioners who are still struggling with their accreditation, even though some of them sent in their particulars several weeks ago. I've seen reports of that, for instance, in The Guardian. So these are outstations, if you like, now, outside of INEC headquarters. What's going on with regard to accreditation, and why the log jam, or if you like, the bottleneck at this last minute?
Well, I'll be surprised at that. We have accredited international media here in Abuja, and also media that wish to cover elections across state borders. And it has gone smoothly. I did not receive any complaints. I don't think anybody could have applied weeks ago because the guidelines did not come out weeks ago. So if they did 3-4 weeks ago, they probably did not comply. The guidelines were quite simple. If you sent in your letter and you don't have passport photographs, for example, and you have no contact number which we can reach you, then there will be a problem with your process because you have not complied with the guidelines. If you complied within the time when brought, say, let's say your passport photographs, that's all well and good. Or there are some where doubtful of the media. If you say you're online, my staff are there, will check and just see whether there are any recent posts. If the last time you posted was 6 months or 9 months ago, then I'm sorry, we may not agree to accredit you. Or you say you're a publisher and you cannot give us any recent publication, then there's a problem because we've heard intelligence reports that some parties or some people may wish to infiltrate, and they know that only accredited media and observers can move around freely on election day. So they might want to take the opportunity of that to move around. So we're careful. It's not all comers that are welcome. But we did have a dinner meeting with certain professionals, including the president of NUJ, for example, were there. 1 or 2 chapters did raise issues, maybe insufficient numbers. I had a state where it was the NUJ that wrote and said, look, this, I said, no, that's not the proper thing. It is the media house that should write. We refer to the NUJ. Do you know these members? I said for the more obscure publications. But of course, more reputable, NTA did not have any challenge. I'm sure they confirmed that to you. FRCN, The Guardian, This Day, all these people did not have, those notable ones did not have any challenge at all. But those obscure ones that could not prove actual existence, current existence. Somebody came to me and brought a magazine of his that was 2 years old. I said, don't you have any current one? It says at home, oh, we're here, please go back in Abuja, based in Abuja. Why don't you go and get it back? Oh, I can't look at any. So I had problems and challenges issuing a card to such a person. Because if anything goes wrong, if a person breaches the code, and before we can withdraw the accreditation, the security forces might apprehend that kind of person if they are able to, or the person might create so much damage, all in the name of an accredited media person. So some of those people had challenges. Some were expecting 150, 300 in some states. They far exceeded that. That's, I ask my people, go back, scrutinize these things more closely. Any of the major agencies, give them their full competence of accreditation. But also, we now found out that people who were not really relevant to covering things on the field were now included in the list. Yes, certainly drivers will be included, engineers and people, sound engineers who are going to come to us. So the back-end people, some of those ones will be there. But I don't see why an administrative clerk who has nothing to do on that particular day, and you put 20 administrative clerks, then I have a problem with that.
Do you have a number of total accredited people, journalists, that problem we're covering?
So far, total number of accredited. I don't have the feedback from the states, but in Abuja there are well over 2,000 people. I think there were 46 or 47 foreign agencies and over 139 last time I checked, domestic agencies that were houses that were media houses that were accredited, online and regular.
Cover Abuja.
Well, they cover Abuja, or they are going across state borders. So you can go from Abuja to Enugu if you so choose, for example.
Is there a deadline for accreditation?
Yeah, there was. The guidelines were quite clear. It expired last week.
So
all applications had to be received by last week.
So no further accreditation beyond that?
Ordinarily not, but in exceptional cases, probably the chairman of the commission. But I don't think we'll do any about now. So we must put a cap on that.
Okay, that's before the presidential election, or that's also
it covers both
elections.
Both
all right.
Maybe Ape, you have something to say to that with regards to what you just said?
The clarification that he has said.
The truth is, for those of us in the field, we sympathize with INEC because there are a lot of mischief makers who are actually very active party men seeking to be observers or media or whatever, and they want the legitimacy to do this mischief by the accreditation tag. And because INEC have made it very specific that it's down to your picture so that you can be fully identified, even the phone numbers we all submit before against the names before they are accredited. So I quite appreciate that challenge to that extent. And then also people just wanting this thing about numbers that I had so 1,000 numbers in the field when they actually have no systems in place to monitor these deployed accredited.
With regards to your members?
For the observers in the civil society, it's very quite clear. We all have very systematic election observations that we are deploying, and it's based on these sample-based deployments that we were turning lists for accreditation. And INEC have really been very gracious to that extent of accommodating our systematic deployments. It is just the limited time within which we have to put the cards the accreditation tags and kits into the hands of the observers, that we're having to double up and increase costs. But to the extent that we appreciate that they must be accredited before they will be in the field, and INEC has accommodated that, we give them thumbs up.
All right, thank you very much. Let's turn again to the first public relations officer. Now, this is a curious one, but it's always been a regular feature of our elections, whether off-cycle or the general elections. The incidence of fake security agents. You would have, I've had cause to raise that in our discussion segments on Good Morning Nigeria. You have instances where persons don police uniforms when in fact they are not bona fide, they are not policemen bona fide. Some of them have fake military uniforms and so on and so forth. How can these persons be dealt with? Because one of the reports we saw in the papers yesterday or today indicated that persons who were in military fatigues hijacked, a vehicle conveying materials related to the election. How can that be dealt with, and what are the telltale signs that members of the public should watch out for so they can immediately squeal on these rogue elements and then get them apprehended?
Okay, let me just put it straight. This way we are not unaware that there could be temptation for politicians or for other unscrupulous elements, mischief makers, to try to actually impersonate the police, impersonate members of the military, impersonate other law enforcement agencies. But we've also tried to come up with remedies for suppressing such mischief. And one of the things we've done in our operational guideline, as the IGP has equally spoken about that in a couple of other fora. And for us, every single police officer that will be deployed tomorrow and even beyond, as far as the general election is concerned, will wear a special identification tag. Beyond your badge, beyond your first number, beyond your regular name tag, there will be another special tag that you will be adorning. And so far we've kept the description of those tags secret, confidential, until deployment commences. And so for us, that special identification tag will help in reducing, if not eliminating, the chances of people impersonating our personnel. Secondly, most of our deployment will also commence hours before the election. Today, for instance, is the eve of the election. Most of the people, apart from the intelligence unit that are out, apart from the police A wing that have already deployed, because our helicopters are already out on the field. We've deployed helicopters to the 6 geopolitical zones, apart from the ones that will be left in Abuja for emergencies and for other kind of functions within the North Central. Most other helicopters have been deployed. And so, on the eve of the election, officers and men will be mustered, they will be briefed before deploying. And so when people are leaving for a particular police station, they go together, they go as a group, they know themselves. And we're also working with INEC, providing INEC officers on the field, on the ground, with the details of every single police officer that will be deployed to that particular pool. So, for instance, if there's a particular polling booth and we're deploying 3 personnel to that booth, we will supply the head of the INEC team on the ground, the names, the phone numbers, the full details of all the policemen, all the security agencies that will be attached to that post. So the INEC official has in his custody every detail concerning the 3 persons. So any other person coming in will be treated as a meddlesome interloper. And beyond that, I also want to say this on a very serious but also a lighter mode, that for us as members of the regimented organization, our relationship, the relationship between the commanders and their men is analogous to the relationship between the good shepherd and the sheep. Every good shepherd knows his sheep, and his sheep know him. And so on the field, if I'm an area commander, if I'm a DPO, if I'm a squadron commander, and I'm on visiting round, if I see any strange face, I will know. The sheep equally know themselves. If any police officer within that vicinity sees another police officer that do not belong to that contingent, they know ourselves. So beyond that also, we have an internal system where we'll be monitoring the policemen. There will be teams of police officers policing the policemen on the field. So we've put different level of checks that will help us to identify, isolate, and probably deal with any kind of fake security person out there. And the same thing we're doing, I also believe, and I know that our colleagues in the military are also doing the same. Our colleagues in the DSS, in the customs, in immigration, in the civil defense, in prisons, and the federal road safety, they're all doing the same, because we all have a common standard operational procedure guiding what we're doing here.
Just for emphasis, I'd just like you to again, remind us of the duties of these members of this special election, squad that you've talked about. What will be their duty? What will they be doing this period?
The special election intelligence monitoring team, they've been out almost for 2 weeks, and like Laz Ape said, part of their duty is just to go out there, keep continuously. They're out there continuously assessing the situation. Even though we've done a comprehensive threat analysis, these personnel out there will continue to do localized threat analysis. And what we did, again, based on the initial threat analysis we did, we localized these threats. And the number of personnel we deployed to each state or each local government depended largely on what we saw or what we have predicted on the basis of the initial threat analysis we've done. So they are out there, and that also explains part of the raids we've carried out. If you notice in some states of the Federation, like in Kano, for example, we've been carrying out massive raids. These raids are not indiscriminate raids. These raids are based on security reports that the election monitoring teams have been turning on to us.
Are there particular states that you're giving particular attention?
We are giving every part of Nigeria equal attention. But of course, there are specific threats that are associated with each particular state. The IGP will not give priority to one part of the country over the other. The entire length and breadth of Nigeria falls within his constituency. So we're giving every part of Nigeria equal attention. But of course, there are customized there are special and specific challenges in different parts of the country, and we're dealing with them in that way. And that's why our deployment strategies are also customized and tailored to suit the security challenges we have noticed in the different parts of the country.
All right, Franco Ba, thank you very much. Back again to Maiduguri. Let's bring in Micah Lakumna, Head of Voter Education and Publicity for INEC in Borno State. Now, very briefly, ahead of voting starting tomorrow, is there tension or just plain anxiety?
Plain anxiety, because as right away in the town, the IDP camps, and everywhere, people are eager, waiting for the time of the voting come tomorrow. So far, the reports also received from our officers there in the local government areas, there has been any other challenge so far as it is. materials are moved, and so far we have not received any security challenge as it is now. Only that people are waiting, eager to see that hour of the voting, which will commence by 8 o'clock in the morning. God helping us.
Like a big football match, you know. They say kickoff is at such and such a time. You know, everybody you will be packed. Okay, Enugu. I think we'll go to Enugu. Yes. Emeka, the rec for Enugu. We ask you the same question because we are almost coming down now to the close of today's program. What is this? What is the mood in Enugu? Is it tension, anxiety, or eagerness mixed with anxiety?
Of course, some people have also declared, you know, today fasting day, you know, and all that.
Half work day.
Half work day and all that.
There's usually anxiety. There's usually tension, but the tension here is a healthy tension. A tension of expectations of performance of INEC, a tension of the expected emergence of the winners, and all that. There is no other major tension associated to anything negative as far as we can pick. For instance, the threats that we learned are being issued, we read it in the pages of the newspaper. And I wish to use this medium to say it is not really good for the media to begin to amplify such things. We don't get those messages except when we read it from pages of the newspapers or social media. But on ground, I don't think there is any tension that is not pointing towards positive angle as we go into tomorrow's general election.
Just before we take on this next set of tweets, I'd like Mr. Osesai to also tell us what kind of conduct are you expecting from the voter tomorrow?
Well, I think Laz has made allusions to that. Basically, they should be well comported. They should go there at their earliest convenience, cast their votes. Those who choose to stay can remain behind. Those who choose to go home can go home. Protect their votes just means being there, waiting peacefully, because the security agencies will walk you out if you're not behaving in an orderly manner. In any case, all accredited party agents who indicated by submitting a list of their party agents will be there to represent the interests of their parties. Any voter who's interested can wait, but you must be orderly, you must comport yourself, you must obey all the instructions given to you by the security officers and by INEC officials. And I think
you know why I asked. I hear
yes.
I heard some adverts say, "Bring your bread, bring your this, bring your that." You know, so you can.
Well, you choose what you want, really. As long as you are lawful, you conduct yourself in an orderly manner. That's okay.
And the rule prohibiting the use of a smartphone inside a cubicle, the rule stays?
It stays. It's been re-emphasized. You don't use your you don't take it in there. You don't take photographs of that. On the outside, and especially when the results are pasted, you're free to take photographs, tweet it, send it to situation room of INEC or situation room of the security agency or anywhere. If you see some untoward things happening, we encourage you to report to the INEC Citizens Contact Center or to report to the security agencies. We encourage that, but not to either take photographs of somebody else is casting his ballot to know how he voted or she voted, or to take your and to take it because we want to stem that trend that you take your photographs and you go and collect money somewhere else. That is a no-no.
And just one point. The elections are taking place tomorrow. The big one, of course, is the presidential election. From your timetable and from your projections, when might the final results be announced?
It will be announced as soon as collation is done. The law says we must collate all results, and when the results are collated, I can't give you a time limit for that. I can give you the activities that have to happen. Collation at every level will be done, and the Chief Electoral Commissioner, who is the returning officer for a presidential election, those results will be brought here to Abuja at the International Conference Center, where they will be collated and the results declared, the declaration made.
Take that again. You will require the physical presence of the returning officers in each of the states for the presidential election to be physically present at the ICC. That's your venue?
Yes. The collation officers for each state will come with the resident electoral commissioner and bring the results. At every level, just like you start from the polling unit at the ward level, they collate. The person collating, the collation officer, they must take it to the local government level, the local government to the state, and the state onto Abuja.
All right, let me bring Ape finally, just before we take our tweet and close the discussion. Ape, are we expecting any surprises in terms of turnout?
I think by all means, because the turnout from 99 to date, the turnout in 99 was not too bad. 2003, it was great. It started dwindling in 2007 and has continued to drop by almost 7%. We are thinking that by the level of increase in voter registration, given the continuous voter registration, given the exciting number of candidates on the ballot, given the exciting conversations within the social media spaces, we are thinking the voter turnout may have a step up this time. But then most importantly, we have continually called on citizens that staying at home does not change the country in any positive way. Right. So every one of them must go out to the polling unit and cast.
If you have your PVC, 84 million registered, but Osaze, do we have a number? We have a sense of
Before
those.
the end of the day, we'll issue the figures as to the number of PVCs, total number of PVCs collected.
There are a few nagging issues surrounding some states. INEC hasn't taken a decision yet with regard to those.
As far as we're concerned, there are no nagging issues.
All right. Okay. All right. Let's take our tweets now. Claire, Amabolaho has this tweet. Now, it's 24 hours away, and all relevant stakeholders must have at the back of their mind that we only have one country called Nigeria. No political ambition of any individual is worth the blood of the youngest Nigerian. Vote, not fight.
And Abraham Chijiles tweets, as we go to polls tomorrow, the electorate should know that no candidate is worth fighting or dying for.
Dele Jack Solomon says, let the electorate do their part to complete the electioneering cycle for a successful conduct of elections. They must not fail in this cause.
And Mike Kayankwo says, INEC, as a matter of top priority, should distribute election materials on time. Accreditation and voting more sturdily too. Security agents must be at every point to avoid ballot snatching and falsification of results.
And then let's take this from Cecilia Okoroma. It says, thank you guys, NTA. Nigerians should all remember that this is the only country we have, a country we must love.
And Zahara Din Aliu tweets, there is no TV channel like NTA in Nigeria. No bias, no contempt, so professional. Pray all the elections be uneventful and smooth. I think we get to give ourselves, a clap for that. Mrs. Ada, if you don't agree.
well, thank you. Thank you for the compliments. Of course, the hard work still lies ahead of us. And just to once again announce that NTA Network Service has a studio dedicated to the elections. It's called Nigeria Decides. The studios opened yesterday at 4:30 in the afternoon and ran for 30 minutes. It's reopening today at 12 noon and most probably will close at 7 p.m. But thereafter, Saturday, of course, most likely will be the whole day. The time schedule will be announced. That will be on the network service of the Nigerian Television Authority.
Do we
Nigeria
have time
Decides.
for sports?
Yes, but we have to sign off our guests in the first instance. Let's thank our guests who've been around. Oluwole Osaze is the INEC Director for Voter Education and Publicity. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Best of luck to INEC and to Nigeria. We also would like to thank Assistant Commissioner of Police, Frank Umba, for being with us on the program today. Thank you very much.
Always a pleasure.
Lazarus Appeal, Elections Associate from the Center for Democracy and Development. Thank you for honoring our invitation.
Always a pleasure with me.
From Maiduguri, Mika Lakumna, Head of Voter Education and Publicity for Borno State, INEC. Thank you for being on the program today. And also from Enugu, the REC, that's the Resident Electoral Commissioner, Emeka Ononamdu. Ononamadu, yes. So pardon that, I still struggle with that. Thank you for being with us and best of luck.
All right, Kingsley, I'd like to once again also appreciate all the guests and all of you who sent in tweets. Don't forget to join us on Monday, of course, when we do a review. And as one of the papers say, let Nigeria win this election. Bye-bye from all of us.
All right. Beyond elections, there is still a great country for us.
Indeed.
And as we advised a few days ago, treat Nigeria tenderly. I'm Kingsley Osadolo.
And I'm Claire Delabu Abdurrazak. Bye-bye.